Every day, somewhere in the world, something happens that shouldn't. Something dark, something that makes you lock your doors a little tighter at night. I'm Jacob and I collect these stories. These are 3 disturbing true Ring doorbell horror stories. Story 1, The Woman Who Wasn't a Neighbor. Jessica and I moved into our new house in the spring of 2021. It was in a quiet suburb outside of Dallas, Texas. Our first home together, 3 bedrooms, a nice backyard, and a friendly neighborhood where people waved at each other and kids played in the streets until dark. One of the first things I did after moving in was install a Ring doorbell. It wasn't because I was worried about crime. The neighborhood was safe. I just liked the idea of seeing who was at the door without getting up from the couch. A small convenience. For the first few months, the Ring captured exactly what you'd expect. Amazon deliveries, the mailman, a few neighbors stopping by to introduce themselves. Nothing unusual. Then in late August, something changed. I was at work when I got a motion alert on my phone around 2 p.m. I opened the app and saw a woman standing on my front porch. She was middle-aged, maybe early 50s, with short gray hair and a floral blouse. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't ringing the bell, she was just standing there staring at the door. I watched for a few seconds, waiting for her to do something, but she didn't move. She just stood there with her hands at her sides, looking at the door like she was waiting for it to open on its own. After about 30 seconds, she turned around and walked away. I figured she was probably a neighbor who had the wrong house. Maybe she was looking for the previous owners. I didn't think much of it, but the next day she came back. Same time, same behavior. She walked up to the porch, stood in front of the door, and stared at it for about a minute. Then she left. This time I mentioned it to Jessica. She didn't recognize the woman from the description. We'd met most of our neighbors by now, and none of them matched. On the 3rd day, I decided to use the 2-way audio feature on the Ring. When the motion alert came through, I opened the app and spoke through the doorbell. "Hi there, can I help you with something?" The woman didn't respond. She didn't even flinch. She just kept staring at the door like she hadn't heard me. I tried again. "Hello? Are you looking for someone?" Nothing. After another 30 seconds, she turned and walked away just like before. Now I was getting concerned. I showed the footage to a few of my neighbors and asked if anyone knew who she was. No one recognized her. She wasn't from the neighborhood. On the 4th day, I decided to come home early from work. I wanted to confront her in person and find out what she wanted. I parked down the street and waited. At 2:07 p.m., I saw her. She came walking down the sidewalk from the direction of the main road. She wasn't in a hurry. She moved slowly, deliberately, like she had all the time in the world. I got out of my car and approached her, just as she was about to step onto my driveway. "Excuse me," I said, "can I help you?" The woman stopped and looked at me. Her expression was completely blank. No emotion, no recognition, just empty. "I live here," I said. "You've been coming to my house every day. What do you want?" The woman tilted her head slightly, like she was confused by the question. Then she spoke for the first time. "This is my house." I felt a chill run down my spine. "No," I said. "This is my house. I bought it 6 months ago." The woman shook her head slowly. "No, this is my house. I've lived here for 30 years. I didn't know what to say. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation as calmly as I could while keeping an eye on the woman who hadn't moved. When the officers arrived, they spoke with the woman for several minutes. She remained calm the entire time. She kept insisting that she lived there. She gave them the correct address. She described the interior of the house in detail, details that matched how it looked when Jessica and I moved in. Eventually, the officers were able to identify her. Her name was Patricia Vance. She was 54 years old, and she had, in fact, lived in that house for almost 30 years, but she hadn't lived there for the past 3. Patricia had been diagnosed with early onset dementia. Her family had moved her to an assisted living facility after she could no longer care for herself. The house had been sold twice since then, first to another family and then to Jessica and me. But Patricia's mind was stuck in the past. She didn't remember moving. She didn't remember the facility. In her mind, she still lived in that house. And every day, when the staff at the facility weren't watching closely enough, she would slip out and walk the 2 miles back to what she believed was her home. Jessica and I worked with the facility to improve their security protocols. Patricia was moved to a memory care unit with better supervision, but for weeks afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about those videos. The way she just stood there staring at the door, waiting to be let into a home that was no longer hers. The thing that disturbed me most wasn't her condition. It was how close she got every single day without anyone noticing. And if I hadn't installed that Ring doorbell, I never would have known she was there at all. Story 2, 3 knocks at 3 a.m. I was living alone in a small townhouse in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had moved there for work about a year earlier and didn't know many people in the area. I kept to myself mostly. Went to work, came home, watched TV, went to bed. I had a Ring doorbell installed when I first moved in. My parents had insisted on it. They didn't like the idea of me living alone in a city where I didn't know anyone. The Ring gave them peace of mind, and honestly, it gave me peace of mind too. For over a year, the doorbell captured nothing but the usual: packages, food deliveries, the occasional solicitor. Nothing that ever made me look twice. Then came the night of October 17th, 2022. I was asleep when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I groaned and checked the time. 3:14 a.m. The notification was from my Ring app. Motion detected at the front door. I almost ignored it. Probably just a cat or a raccoon triggering the sensor. It happens sometimes, but something made me open the app anyway. The video showed a man standing on my front porch. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled up. I couldn't see his face. He was just standing there, facing the door, completely still. My heart started pounding. I watched the live feed, waiting for him to do something. For 10 seconds, he didn't move. Then he raised his hand and knocked on the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I held my breath. I was afraid to move, like somehow he would know I was watching. The man waited. Then he knocked again. 3 more knocks, louder this time. After about 30 seconds of silence, he turned and walked away. He disappeared down the sidewalk and out of the camera's view. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in my bedroom with all the lights on, watching the Ring app, waiting to see if he came back. He didn't. The next morning, I convinced myself it was probably just a drunk guy who had the wrong house. It happened. People made mistakes. I decided not to report it. But the following night, at 3:11 a.m., my phone buzzed again. He was back. Same hoodie, same posture, same slow approach to the door. This time he didn't knock right away. He stood there for almost a full minute, just staring at the door. Then he leaned in close, so close that his face nearly touched the doorbell camera, and whispered something. I turned up the volume on my phone and replayed the clip. "I know you're awake." My blood went cold. I called 911 immediately. I told the dispatcher everything: the visits, the knocks, the whisper. A patrol car came by and circled the neighborhood, but the man was long gone. The officer told me to keep my doors locked, stay vigilant, and call again if he came back. He came back. The third night, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the motion alert went off. I was already awake, sitting in my living room with a kitchen knife in my hand and my phone ready to dial 911. I opened the app. He was standing on the porch again, but this time he wasn't alone. There was a second man with him, shorter, stockier, wearing a similar dark hoodie. They were both facing the door. The first man knocked. 3 slow knocks. Then the second man spoke. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "We just want to talk." I was shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I dialed 911 and whispered to the dispatcher that there were 2 men on my porch, that they had been coming for 3 nights, and that I was terrified. The dispatcher kept me on the line and sent 2 patrol cars. On the Ring footage, I watched as the 2 men waited. They didn't try to break in. They didn't try the handle. They just stood there like they had all the time in the world. Then one of them looked directly at the camera. He smiled, and then they both turned and walked away, just as the police sirens became audible in the distance. The officers searched the area but found no sign of them. They pulled footage from neighboring houses, but no one else had Ring cameras on that street. The men had seemingly appeared from nowhere and vanished the same way. I moved out 2 weeks later. I broke my lease and didn't care about the penalty. I moved back in with my parents in another state. I never found out who they were or what they wanted. The police never identified them, but I kept the Ring footage. I watch it sometimes, even now. Not because I want to, but because I need to remind myself that it was real, that it actually happened, that for 3 nights in a row, 2 strangers came to my door in the middle of the night, knocked 3 times, and waited for me to answer. And I still don't know what would have happened if I had. Story 3. The Delivery Man Who Came Back. My wife Tanya and I bought our first house in the summer of 2023. It was in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Like most new homeowners, we installed a Ring doorbell within the first week. We liked being able to see deliveries arrive and check on the house when we were at work. It felt like a smart, modern thing to do. For the first few months, everything was normal. The Ring captured the usual parade of delivery drivers: Amazon, FedEx, UPS, the occasional pizza guy, nothing out of the ordinary. Then in early September, I noticed something strange while reviewing the day's footage. A delivery driver had dropped off a package around 2 p.m. Normal. But about 40 minutes later, the same driver came back. He didn't have another package. He just walked up to the porch, looked at the door for a few seconds, and then left. I thought it was odd, but figured maybe the guy had forgotten something or was double-checking an address. I didn't mention it to Tanya. 3 days later, it happened again. The same driver, I recognized the uniform and the build, delivered a package in the afternoon, and then about an hour later, he came back. This time, he stood on the porch for almost 2 minutes. He wasn't looking at the door, he was looking at the windows. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I showed Tanya the footage that night. She was immediately creeped out. We agreed to keep an eye on the ring alerts and report it if it happened again. It happened again and again. Over the next 2 weeks, the driver returned to our house 7 times, always after his initial delivery, always when no one was home. Sometimes he'd stay for a few minutes, sometimes just 30 seconds, but every time he seemed to be studying the house, looking at the windows, checking the side gate. Once, he even walked around to the backyard, out of the camera's view, for nearly 5 minutes before leaving. I reported it to the delivery company. I sent them the footage and demanded an explanation. They said they would investigate and get back to me. A week went by, no response. Then came the night of September 22nd. Tanya and I were asleep when the ring alert went off at 2:34 a.m. I grabbed my phone and opened the app, and the delivery driver was standing on our porch. He wasn't in uniform this time. He was wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap, and he was holding something in his hand. It was a crowbar. I jumped out of bed and grabbed the baseball bat I kept in the closet. I yelled at Tanya to call 911 and ran to the front door. I looked through the peephole. The man was still there, fiddling with the door handle. I screamed through the door, "I've got a gun and the cops are on the way. Get the hell off my property." I didn't have a gun, but he didn't know that. Through the ring camera, I watched the man freeze. For a moment, he just stood there like he was deciding what to do. Then he turned and ran. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. But this time, they had something to work with. The ring footage clearly showed his face. And because I had reported him to the delivery company weeks earlier, they were able to identify him. His name was Derek Lyle. He was 31 years old and had been working for the delivery company for about 8 months. He had no prior criminal record, but when police searched his apartment, they found something that made me sick to my stomach. Derek had a notebook. Inside, he had detailed notes on over a dozen houses on his delivery route, floor plans he had sketched from memory, notes on the homeowners' schedules, what time they left for work, what time they came home, which houses had dogs, which houses had security system. And for our house, he had written one chilling note. No dog, no alarm, easy entry through backsliding door. Woman home alone on Wednesdays. Tanya works from home on Wednesdays. She's usually alone in the house all day. Derek was arrested and charged with attempted burglary and stalking. He's currently awaiting trial. Tanya and I installed a full security system the next week. Motion lights, window sensors, cameras on every corner of the house. We adopted a German Shepherd from a local rescue. But the thing that still haunts me isn't the crowbar or the notebook or the attempted break-in. It's the fact that for weeks, this man had been coming to our house, studying our lives, and planning something terrible. And we had no idea. If it weren't for that Ring doorbell, we might never have known until it was too late. If this story kept you up tonight, good. That means you're paying attention. I'm Jacob. Stay safe, and whatever you do, trust your instincts.